Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Once again, my favorite time of the month, where we get to talk about the 6 books I read in July and then we get to pick my August TBR. Okay, so first book I read in July actually was for another video that I'm doing with Bodhi, which you will see sometime in August, and that was To Kill a Mockingbird. Now I got given this because we both picked books for each other that we really enjoyed, and he chose for me To Kill a Mockingbird. Now I rated this a 3.5 star, which is quite a good rating, I'd say. We do generally read this in high school, but I'm not entirely sure if I did read it. I can't remember if I did or not. I remember the movie very vividly, but I wasn't sure if I read the book. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about a lawyer's advice to his children because he is defending the real mockingbird of this classic, which is a black man who has been accused of a white woman. Now, as the story unfolds, it's mainly him about teaching his kids about racism and to not have the same small-minded views as other people in this small town, where black people are the common enemy, and you should automatically believe everything a white person says because the black person is always in the wrong, basically. So Atticus is the lawyer and he is defending, can't remember his name, but he's defending this black man who is accused of a white woman. And for the first half of the book, I would say it's pretty much just centered around Atticus showing us who his children are. And his children are Scout and Jem Finch, who they're younger children, and it just shows them growing up a bit throughout the book. I will say through this book, I definitely way prefer the second half. I think it's because the second half is actually about the case, whereas the first half was mainly just about learning, discovering who his children were and him starting to implement lessons to them about racism and not having small-minded views. So I definitely prefer the second half because the first half I wouldn't even say was really about the case. But I will say I think I do prefer the movie, which I don't honestly normally think I do prefer the movie, but I think I do because it's easier to follow and it's more centered around the case, like I said. I definitely think it's a classic more people should read, and I have said to Bodhi in the past I really want to get into reading more classics, so I hope this is the beginning of me reading more. But I would recommend this book to everyone. I think everyone should get their hands on this if they haven't. It's a very good telling of how racism can affect people, obviously, and it just shows how small-minded some people can be and how to hopefully change that. And the truth eventually comes out in this book, and it was a very good book and I rated it a 3.5. Next book I read was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, which I rated at 3.25. Now this isn't in a series, but from this author as well, I have read Gone Girl. And when I read Gone Girl, I think I rated it a 3. So definitely not a big drastic difference. This was a 3.25, that was a 3. This was one of the books that's been on my cart the longest, and I really didn't want to read it because I didn't even want to read Gone Girl, but when I read it, I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. I had heard going into Sharp Objects that it was a lot more interesting. It was really hard to not read it because you were so immersed in this book and you just never wanted to put it down. So I was excited to find out what this book was about and why people enjoyed it more than Gone Girl. So this book is about I think she's a journalist. This journalist, Camille, goes back to her hometown that she had left many years earlier. She didn't enjoy her hometown and she left, and she comes back to this town because 2 young girls have gone missing and then they're soon discovered to be murdered. So she leaves, she comes back. She has a very poor relationship with her mother. She has a new sibling that obviously is part her mum but not her dad, so half sibling, and her sibling is insane. Like, she is the town's bully. She's not a nice person. She acts all innocent with her family, but everyone knows that she is a bully of this town. And she's younger too. I think she's in her early teens. So she goes back to this town to investigate the disappearance of these two girls. And yeah, she reacquaints herself with her distant mum and her 13-year-old half-sister, who she doesn't actually know really at all. Now, her mother's not, I wouldn't say, very nice to her, and that could also be because when Camille was younger, her sister also passed away, and they think they know why that happened and how it happened, but they don't actually know why, and you find out later on how her sister actually passed away and what happened. And and this town is just very secretive. No one really believes anyone, and they're not only is Camille trying to discover what happened to these young girls, but all other police officers in this town are also trying to figure out where these girls have gone and what's happened. And Camille soon realizes that it's very close to home and she must come to terms with her childhood as well as in the current, and now. So I will say, I read it relatively quickly. The first half of the book, again, I was interested, I was immersed, but I wasn't hooked. The second half of the book, I was definitely a lot more interested because everything was coming to a head, everything was lining up, and I was like, okay, this is making so much sense. And then the last, I'd say 50 to 100 pages, I was like, oh, okay. So that definitely bumped up the rating. I probably still would have rated a 3, but that bumped it up slightly, and I rated a 3.25 because the ending I never saw coming, really, at all. The person that you find out hurt these girls, and then you also find out what happened to Camille's sister when she died. So everything just comes to a head, and it was very interesting, and it was a big plot twist to me personally. I wasn't expecting it. 3.25. I think it was a good thriller. Definitely would read this out. Other than Gone Girl, I'd read this one. I have one more in this series called Dark Places, so I don't know what that's about, but maybe I could get to that and then I would know which one I would recommend more. I would recommend this though. I think it's a good psychological thriller that people would be very interested in. It gives me what's that show with Joey King and her mother's making her sick and she's in the wheelchair and then she ends up killing her mum. I'll put the show here, but that show, it's the similar kind of vibes, I'd say, in this book towards the end, which I liked that show, so it made sense. I enjoyed the second half of this book. But 3.25 would definitely recommend. The next book, I actually rated a 6 star. So this is the second 6-star book I've had this year, which is insane considering I hadn't had one in 2 years. And that is The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. I adored this book. I adored it. I rated 6 star. I've definitely been this hooked on a book before, but not in a very long time. It was the book I could not stop thinking about. I think I dreamt about it, which is really messed up with what's in this book, but whatever. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wanted to talk about it constantly. I just wanted to be in this book all the time, and I never wanted to put it down, and it was completely taking over my life for the 2 days I read it. So this book I did talk about in one of my vlogs, but obviously I haven't completely talked about it. It is a duology. I've got this second book. It's called The Way I Am Now, which I really can't wait to get to. But this one is centered around Eden, who, when she is in freshman year, so 14, she's sexually assaulted by her brother's best friend. Now, when this happens, she doesn't tell anyone, no one knows. She kind of just starts changing in a way that no one is really quite sure why, because she's quite nerdy to begin with and reserved, and she has this very small group of friends, and she's quite nice and just very put together young girl. And then when this happens, her brother and the brother's best friend are in college, so after it happens they go back to their college life, and Eden is left dealing with this assault, and it is extremely confronting, especially because it's one of those books where if someone just asked the right question, it could have been sorted like straight away, which is so hard to come to terms with, because I'm sure if you were in that moment, you'd be like, I want you to just ask this one question, I'll tell you everything. Because as soon as the assault happens, it's in the middle of the morning, like 2-3 a.m. in the morning. Then the next morning, her mum comes in and she is covered in blood, and the mum thinks like, oh, you're 14 now, you've just got your period. And she's trying to tell her mum like, no, and her mum's just, no, it's okay, don't be embarrassed. And that's what I mean when I say if they just asked one question, she would have been like, no, this is what happened. From freshman year onwards, it follows her throughout the entirety of high school, so until like 3 years later when she's like 17, I believe. And yeah, it shows how much she changes and how much of an impact this assault has had on her as an individual. Not only as an individual, but her relationship with her family, like her parents, her brother, and her friends, specifically her best friend. And not only that, but as soon as this assault happens, she decides to change her appearance and like just dress more like, I'd say like revealing, just take off her glasses, get contacts, like things like that. And she starts sleeping with and seeing an older guy from an older year level. He's very lovely to her. He just really wants to know what the deal is because he wants a relationship with her. She doesn't want to give him that. And he doesn't know what the deal is because they're just having sex at this point. And he's like, no, I want more. And she just is constantly pushing him away and then bringing him back in. And it's just very toxic in that regard where she's like, no, I want him, but I'm not going to allow myself to have him. So she's constantly doing things that make him go like, what the hell? Like, why is this not working? And in the end, unfortunately, they do end up breaking up. Well, they weren't properly together, but they break up. And that crushed my soul because I love them together. I love him. Honestly, oh, I just love them together so much. And yeah, after they break up, she changes a lot more because she realizes she was in love with him and she's just thrown away something so important to her, and she realizes if she continues to sleep with these random people, she kind of has some sense of control, because when she was assaulted, she obviously didn't have that control and it wasn't her decision. So throughout this whole book, she sleeps with lots of different people, and I would say doesn't change for the better, kind of becomes like the person I don't think she would have become if all the past trauma didn't happen to her, unfortunately. She loses a lot of people on the way. Her parents don't know what's going on. Her brother and her aren't as close because he's with the best friend all the time. May I add, this best friend is seen as like their family. Like her parents view him as like their family. And then at the end of the book, she ends up, spoiler, it's not really a huge spoiler because it's kind of like inclined this is going to happen, but at the end of the book, she does end up coming clean to the boy she used to love. And because he's come back, he's in college, he's got a new relationship, he comes back one night when she's upset and crying and she's like, no, I still love you, like all this. And yeah, she ends up spilling her guts and saying, this is why I couldn't be in a relationship with you. I was assaulted literally like a few months prior, and I didn't want to get hurt again, basically. And she couldn't completely open up. So she ends up telling him, and then she ends up telling her brother. And the book kind of ends with them, like her and her brother coming together and going, we're going to come forward to our parents and we're going to tell them. And that's how it ended. And I'm so glad it didn't end with the brother being mad at her, because I thought it was going in that direction, but it really didn't. And it was just such a beautiful, not beautiful, it was such a good depiction of, well, I've never experienced it obviously, but it was such a good depiction of what can happen when something so traumatic happens to you, or even like if you're going through grief and you just change in a way that you didn't expect to. And yeah, just one thing can just completely shift your life in a different direction. And I really enjoyed how this story was told, and I'm so excited to read the second book. Oh, I just love this book, and it was a 6-star for me, and I hope more people read this book, honestly. The next book I've also spoken about in previous videos. The next book I read was Credence by Penelope Douglas, which I ended up rating a 3-star. Now, I probably will repeat myself a bit from my reading vlog, so excuse that, but it's just the best. This is the best way I can explain it. So I got given this book by Bodhi because we were doing the swapping, and I originally picked this book up for him for his birthday because it sounded just like very like thriller kind of vibes. I knew there was sex in it. Little did I know it was the entire book. So I went into it knowing that it would be very compelling and very easy to just sit and read. Went into this knowing that it probably wouldn't be like a highly rated book, but I could still potentially really enjoy it, which I just wanted like a book to just go into and not really have much thought process behind. So when I say this book had like zero plot, I really mean it. From page around like 100 to 150 onwards, it's purely just intercourse, but in the most intense ways. I gotta explain what this book is about, otherwise it just doesn't even make sense. This book follows Tiernan, and Tiernan is, I think, 16, I think she's 17. Yeah, she's 17-year-old girl, and her parents are a film producer and the mum is a movie star. And one day they commit suicide and they pass away, and then she's left with no parental like guidance, nothing like that. So she is sent to live with her father's stepbrother Jake and his 2 sons, Noah and Caleb. Noah is, I'd say, quite loving. He's definitely the one in the book I was like, okay, I can get behind you. You seem quite sweet. He's definitely, yeah, loving, everything. Whereas Caleb doesn't speak, and he hasn't since he was like 3 or 4 years old. So he doesn't say anything, and he's quite, I'd say, scary and intimidating. But all in all 3 of them are very possessive. And you quickly find out that Jake, the step uncle, I guess, is falling for Tiernan and is like in love with her. And it's really kind of uncomfortable because he's in his 40s and she's only 17. And then, yeah, from there on, like, they live in this like little cottage type thing that once a year they get snowed in, and they're there for like months. So when that happens, Tiernan, I would say, she's definitely using them for her benefit, but they're also using her for their benefit. And yeah, do with this knowledge what you will, but they come together in ways I wouldn't particularly like to read again. I'll say that much. The books I read have very little smut, majority of them. Don't get me wrong, fantasy books definitely have a lot more smut. Some romance books I read, like the truer more real life books, like The Way I Used to Be, I'll definitely have more sex in it. But this, the most intense sex scenes I've ever read, the most, like, it's just purely that, and there's nothing really else going on in it. You don't really learn that much about the characters either. Like, you learn a little bit about each of them, but it's mainly just them being so infatuated with Tiernan. Like, it is unfortunate because it just made me quite uncomfortable. The reason I rated it a 3 was because I was hooked. I read it very quickly, like 2 or 3 days. I was hooked from the beginning. I was very interested, mainly because I wanted to know how the story would end, because I predicted it would end like in a creepy way, because it does say only one of them on the back, it only says one of them's going to keep her. So I predicted like, oh, surely like one's going to like take her and like hide her and just keep her forever or something. But no, it actually ended with one of the brothers like marrying her, having a kid with her, like them building a life together, which is so strange when she's just had sex with your other brother and your dad. But some people into that, I don't know. it was a 3, but I wouldn't really recommend it. I mean, if you enjoy that kind of book, yeah, sure. But no, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't even really know if I'd read any more of her books. I mean, I might try one other book, I'm not sure, but it just wasn't a book I'd write home about, really. But 3 star for Credence. The next book I read was Shatter Me by, don't even know how to say that, I'm not even gonna try. But this is the first in a series. I'm not sure how long the series is now. I did look it up, but I'm not entirely sure how long the series is. I think it's like 5 books with novellas in between as well. I'm not entirely sure. This book is set in a dystopian world. Wait, did I say what I rated it? I rated this a 3.25. Potentially, it's probably like a mix between 3.25 and a 3.5. But once again, I preferred the second half of this book. And I was very, very invested. But you don't really find out what's happening until the second half. Hence why it was only rated a 3.25. This book is about a girl called Juliet, and her touch is deathly. If she touches another individual, they will die, and she doesn't know why, and it's been like this since she was younger. And basically her parents ended up giving her to this place called the Re-establishment, where they just had her holed up in this like 4x4 like room, nothing there, she barely eats, she doesn't see anyone, she barely showers, she doesn't go outside, nothing. And she's in there, and yeah, she's been there for I think 230 something days or something like that. So not only does no one know why her touch is fatal, but she also doesn't know, and she's very unsure like why this has happened to her. And even at like school and stuff, no one go near her. And the reason she's taken to this Re-establishment is because one day she's trying to help a little boy, and she actually ends up touching him and killing him. So she gets sent to this place called the Re-establishment. But this Re-establishment place actually has plans to use her as a weapon, and she doesn't obviously want to be a weapon because the Re-establishment is killing all these innocent people, and she doesn't want that to happen because she doesn't actually want to kill people. And she's in this little hold up room, whatever. A young boy gets put in there with her, and she's like, I recognize him. I don't know where he's from, but his eyes are so familiar. And she soon finds out it's a boy from her school that she used to be in love with, and he's the only guy that was ever nice to her. Now he's working at the Re-establishment, but it's kind of like undercover, and he's trying to save Juliet. And not only is he trying to save her, but the leader of this like Re-establishment is actually infatuated with Juliet and so in love with her and wants to keep her, but she won't have a bar of it. She hates that man. So the guy she's in love with, I keep forgetting his name, ends up getting her out of this Re-establishment, and they're basically on the run. And this, I think his name's Warner, the guy that runs the Re-establishment, is trying to find where they've gone. But may I add, she can't touch anyone, no one can touch her. The only people she can touch that she's found out is this guy she's in love with and Warner, the leader of the Re-establishment. And she doesn't want him to find out that, because then he will bring her back and he'll take advantage of her in ways he likes, because he is in love with her as well. They end up getting out of this Re-establishment, they're like on the run. They end up getting taken by someone else to this other place where they're like healing people and everything. And in this place, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people. But out of those hundreds and hundreds of people, there's 50 or so people with powers. And they're known as the superheroes. And she is one of these people. So there's another guy there like that can like disappear like that, like, and become invisible. It's just people with superpowers. Now, they don't know why these certain people have the superpowers, but this place is kind of trying to figure it out and use it to their benefit for the good. Because it is a dystopian world, so the world's fallen apart. They're trying to bring it back together and take down the Re-establishment as well. I'm very excited actually to read the other books in this series, and I do suspect I will really enjoy this book. It's definitely giving kind of similar vibes to Divergent, I will say, which I love Divergent, so I'm pleased with that. It just adds superpowers. I guess that's kind of like her being a Divergent in that is kind of like her superpower. Do you know what I'm saying? I would say that's the most similar. But I've never read a book like it, and I'm really enjoying it. I really did enjoy it, and I'm sure I'll love the other ones. So yeah, 3.25 for Shadow Me. The final book I read for July was a 5-star read for me, and this series is an all-time favorite series of mine. It's a 5-star series. I will recommend this series to the day I die, and that is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which, like I said, I rated a 5-star. Now, out of the 7 books, I believe, let's see how many I rated a 5. I rated 4 out of the 7 a 5-star, and the other 3 are 4.5, so that is incredible odds. But this book is coming to an end of like the battle between Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort. So obviously if you haven't read the book, I'm not gonna like go through everything, but yeah, this one is just about Harry trying to defeat the Dark Lord and trying to kind of like avenge, I guess, like Dumbledore, because Dumbledore has left him a mission and he's trying to complete this mission without anyone getting more hurt and without losing more people, but he kind of discovers that he needs help because he can't do it alone. It's very similar, definitely very similar, because I would say in the other books certain characters are in it a lot more. For example, Dobby is in the other books a lot more than he is in those movies. Like they kind of like switch for some reason, Dobby and Neville, in a lot of scenes. I figured out in the books, which I didn't obviously mind that much because I love Neville still, but I just love Dobby. He holds a special place in my heart, which leads to this. Now, in the last book, obviously Dumbledore died, and that crushed me. But I knew in this book, nearly everyone I love dies. Like, so many characters I love die. Mad-Eye Moody, Hedwig, Dobby, Lupin, Tonks, one of the twin brothers. Like, so many people die. It crushes me. Because also, obviously, Snape also dies, and you find out he's a good person. And then in the other book, his uncle, I always forget his name, but his uncle dies. So like so many people I adore die, and oh, I just knew this would crush me, this book. I really knew it. So when Mad-Eye Moody and Hedwig died, it ruined me because it's just so much more painful, I feel like, in the book, which is so sad, but oh, I just love those two. And then Dobby died, and that ruined me. It really did. I wanted to cry. I knew it was coming, and I still felt so disheartened and crushed because he was just trying to help them. And then obviously they're battling Voldemort, and Snape dies, and the twin brother dies, which is so crushing when you see the reaction from the family members and especially his twin brother. And then Tonks and Lupin die, and they just had a baby. Why are you gonna ruin it like that? Like, seriously. And then, like, him finding out that Snape was actually really his, like, guiding light and, like, a savior to him a lot of the time. And that's just so crushing. I was saying to Brody the other day, I'm like, they really just turned this childhood, like, peaceful, like, kind of, like, really magical, really, like, easy to watch kind of movie into this such a dark, depressing movie, like, storyline. And obviously like it's so obvious why they had to do that, because they're like growing up and they're like coming to terms with all the dark stuff in this like world, so they obviously had to have it go that way. But I do love how all the characters really came together. Like Professor McGonagall, I love her. Love Ron's mum, she's a badass, love her. Just so many of the characters I love so much, and they just all come together and really support one another, and I love that. And I do like how at the back of the book they put 19 years later, so it's obviously when Harry and Ginny are together and Ron and Hermione are together, and they both have families and their kids are both going to Hogwarts. I really like how they include that. it's just such a good series. It's such a feel-good series. Like, it just makes you feel something. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really feel that good a lot of the time, like, but you feel something. Like, you feel a connection to the characters. I'm very passionate about this series, if you can't tell. But now I've finished this series and I don't know what to do with myself. Yes, 5-star, without a doubt, easiest 5-star I've ever given. Hooked from the beginning, didn't want to put it down, and I feel a hole in my chest now that this series is done, honestly. Obsessed. Now it is time to pick my August TBR. Two just books out of the 3 books just out of this, like it's just the book, and then 3 prompts. So I have 3 new editions. I have Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings, which I am desperate to get to, really am. I really, really, really want to read this. And the other 2 books I got were Talking at Night by Claire Davalry, I don't know. But I've heard this book is really good, and it's kind of similar to, I always forget, Daisy Edgar Jones and Paul Mescal, whatever that show is called. I want to read this, but I did find out it doesn't have quotation marks, and I hate books that don't have quotation marks. I really do. But I want to get to that, and obviously you all know I want to get to the way I am now. They're the ones I'd say I'm probably the most intrigued by. First book on my TBR is Japan's infamous Unit 731. Really random. The reason I have this is because when my brother James was moving interstate, he gave away heaps of his books, and at the time I was really into like true crime, true story, like non-fiction, like really into it. So I picked this up. I don't even know, it says first-hand accounts of Japan's wartime human experimentation program. I don't know what it's about. I really don't. I just know it's been on my cart forever, and I probably should get to it. So that's probably a good start to this video TBR. So the first book on my TBR is Japan's infamous Unit 731. This book, Lola in the Mirror by Trent Dalton. I have some things to say about this book. So this is Lola in the Mirror by Trent Dalton. Now I picked this up like over a year ago, like when it first came out, I think, because I thought the blurb sounded really good. I did start reading it. I think I got maybe under 100 pages in, and I just was not interested. I wasn't like even remotely following the story very well. I just didn't want to read it. I haven't heard anything about this book. I just know Trent Dalton's obviously a very good author, and I have wanted to read some of his books. I'm nervous about this book. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not that intrigued to read it, but it has been on my cart for over a year, like I said. So this is the second book on my TBR for August, and that is Lola in the Mirror. Final one of these. Make it a good one. Divergent. Okay. Now, this is another book that's been on, this whole series has been on my cart since I started reading. It's probably been on my cart as long as Hunger Games had been. I just was never interested in reading those books until I had read Harry Potter. But once I had read Harry Potter, obviously, and then I read Hunger Games, I would like to read it. I just am wondering, like, how different it will be from the movies, because I'd say Harry Potter is slightly different, the movies to the books, but I wouldn't say Hunger Games is drastically different. I definitely remember these movies a lot clearer than I did the Hunger Games, so that might impact how much I enjoy it. I don't know if it will, but this is the third book on my TBR for August, and that is Divergent by Veronica Roth. Now I'm going to do 3 of these. Okay, I really just want some good books, guys. A book written by an author from a different country. Well, surely that's the majority of the books I've read. So obviously I'm going to pick a book I want to read. You know what I want to read, and I really want to read the way I am now, so let's find out where Amber Smith is from. It says she grew up in Buffalo, New York, so she's American, so obviously I'm going to read this, guys. You know I'm going to. This is obviously the second book in the duology, I believe it is, and I'm assuming it's just potentially Eden coming back together with the guy she used to love, telling everyone her story, hopefully getting some justice. But I guess you have to wait and find out my final thoughts. But this is the 4th book on my August TBR, Where I Am Now by Amber Smith. A book with magic. Okie doke. Okay, these are the ones I'm thinking might have some magic. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick and The Serpent and the Wings of the Night by Carissa Broadbent. Okay, I think both of these have magic. I'm just going to double check. I know definitely that One Dark Window does because it says, but nothing comes for free, especially magic. I'm not sure if The Serpent of the Wings of the Night does. I'm so intrigued by this book though because it's about vampires and I've never read a book about vampires. Okay, it says it does have magic in it. Dark magic. That could be interesting. I think this is in a series. I'm almost certain, and this is also in a series, so either way. What do I want to read? This has a warning at the beginning, so that's a bit worrisome. This one's thicker, but I honestly think I'm going to enjoy this one more. I don't know. I think I'm going to read The Serpent and the Wings of the Night because I've never read a book with vampires in it and I'm very intrigued, and it says dark magic, so I've never read a book like that really either. I mean, Harry Potter has like dark magic, but this is the 5th book of my TBR for August, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of the Night by Carissa Broadbent. I'm very intrigued. The final book on my August TBR and the final prompt. An author you've read before. Okay. That is an easy decision, I think. Now, I've only got a few authors on here I've read before. So I have Stephen King, I have Jessa Hastings. I think they're the only ones. Oh, I've got Chloe Walsh. But I think we know what I'm going to pick. And I'm going to pick Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings because this is a new release. It's got a very, very, very mixed reviews by what I've seen. I think, well, majority of the reviews I've seen have been good, but then my sister Lacey didn't enjoy it. She thinks she rated like a 2 maybe, and she loves Jessa Hastings, so that concerns me. But it is a new release. I gave her other new release that came out earlier this year, Conditions of Will, I gave that a 6-star. I was obsessed with it. I've never rated any of Jessa Hastings' books as a 5-star, let alone a 6. So I was really invested. I love that book. So I'm intrigued. I honestly do think I'm going to enjoy this a lot more than Lacey did, especially. So we'll see. But from what I know, it's about a musician, Joe, I don't know how to say it, and a model, Isolde. I don't know, weird names. Heard it's very quickly infatuation. I heard it doesn't end as people would particularly like because it is in a series or a duology, I feel like. So this is the 6th and final book on my August TBR, which is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. This is my August TBR and I'm very intrigued, very excited about a few of these books. I've got Divergent, which is obviously a classic for our like generation, especially. Love, so excited, very intrigued about Time of Your Life to see what my opinions are. Super intrigued by this because it's about vampires, and like I said, never read a book about vampires, specifically fantasy. Would I say I'm not really excited for any of them? I'm not too excited about these two, but I'm more intrigued by this because obviously it's real, the real world, like it's actually happened, so I'm excited. Not really about that, so who knows, we'll get to it, but the rest I'm very intrigued. I think it could be a very highly rated month, honestly. This is my August TBR. So thank you for joining me for another wrap up and picking my TBR for a new month. I'm very excited. I can't wait to give you my thoughts and opinions, and I'll see you again soon for another video. Bye!